art of choosing the meaningful over the urgent. And I love the panel because the group of people was so diverse, but I really feel like we were able to share inspiration and information to help people go to the next level and really do what's meaningful.
I was invited to be a part of this amazing event today in Atlanta, coming from Nashville, and being here, it is so electrifying. I cannot believe how Atlanta has turned out to support not only this amazing association, but also to be empowered, and not just by women, but by men as well.
You know, at Wells Fargo Advisors, we are in the wealth management business, and it's equally important that our financial advisor population looks like the community we serve. Yeah, I think anytime you can join a high-quality caliber organization like this, first of all, the networking opportunities are phenomenal. Second of all, from a business perspective, you get to meet a lot of great people who can help you along your career, in addition to the fact it seems like a lot of energy in the room.
The National Black MBA does so much for women, for empowerment, and tonight is a perfect example of how they can gather, get everybody together to really support each other and make a difference in our community.
The reason that this organization is so important to SAPs, SAPs feels very strongly about promoting diversity within our organization. As we continue to focus on diversity in the workplace, this is one of many organizations we partner with to try to inspire a diverse culture from within.
Hey, I'm Horace Mackey. I'm the Director of Student Affairs for the Atlanta chapter of National Black MBA. I'm here today to empower women at the Women's Summit for our second annual Women's Summit. And I brought all my students from the different MBA programs across Atlanta to show them what this empowerment looks like, to give them a good experience before they get out into the workforce and start their careers.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Stallings Ward, and I'm president of the National Black MBA Atlanta chapter. I am so excited about this evening. Today we talked about unlocking your power. And what we did today is really bridge the community and our students and members together, really giving them the tools to be successful. We would like you to join us in our effort to bridge the community and moving women to the next level. Again, we're here to help you unlock your power. This is the National Black MBA Women's Leadership Summit 2019. We hope to see you next year. Greetings and welcome to the National Black MBA Atlanta chapter Women's in Leadership Summit 2020. After seeing that video from last year, all I can say is wow, wow, wow. We truly miss seeing you in person this year. Last year, we enjoyed 600 plus people at our reception featuring a live band, and we had the opportunity to network with each one of you. Due to the current environment, we are in virtual format to ensure your safety. To our corporate partners, Capital One, Chick-fil-A, Georgia Power, Prudential, and SAP, welcome and thank you. To our 8 collegiate universities here in Georgia, welcome and thank you for joining today. My name is Sonia Stallings Ward, and I am the National Black MBA Atlanta president. On behalf of our corporate partners, our board of directors, our co-chair for this event, Marie Harrison, as well as our members, we are delighted that you have joined us today. The panel that we have put together for you will have you feeling inspired and ready to create your own plan of action. Each of us face more challenges than ever before. Not only do we have to work in a virtual environment, but we must also retool to drive our desired outcome to achieve or enable us to our fullest potential. We want each of you to go after your dream with purpose, focus, and execution. Each speaker that you will hear from today, you will hear their stories about their journey. As you listen to their stories and lesson learned, I invite you to reflect on how to chart your own path. Turn your vision into action plan. We're excited about each speaker today, Again, welcome, and I will turn you over to Charmaine Ward-Milner, the Director of Corporate Affairs at Georgia Power, as well as one of our national board members. Charmaine?
I think you're muted, Charmaine.
Welcome. I will start over again. Good evening. Thank you, Sonia, for that great introduction. And I really appreciate that she shared that I am on the national board for National Black MBA, but I also want to mention that I'm a past president for the Atlanta chapter. So the Atlanta chapter will always have a very, very special place in my heart. Before we get started, I do want to give a few housekeeping rules. So first of all, this is a 1 hour and 15-minute discussion, which will include a moderated panel as well as a Q&A. All attendees' videos are hidden and your microphones are muted. We would like you to participate and ask questions because we know there is power in your questions and in the answers that our amazing panelists will give you. But we need you to submit your questions via the Q&A button below. Please do not use the chat function. I know that many of you are familiar with that, but for this Women's Summit, we are going to be using the Q&A button. So please type your question in where it says Q&A button and hit that. The summit is being recorded, and so it will be made available at a later time. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. I am honored to be able to introduce our panelists and our moderator this evening. And I'm going to start with the only guy that is on this panel, one of my friends and one of my national board members with National Black MBA, Michael McNeil. Michael McNeil is the Senior Vice President, Global Chief Information Security Officer at McKesson Corporation. McNeil is a noted security and privacy expert and has held several positions over the years with Fortune 500 companies. Michael is very active in the community, involved in several organizations, including serving on the national board of the National Black MBA Association and the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation. Michael has been awarded several accolades over the years, to include the 2011 Outstanding MBA of the Year by the National Black MBA Association. Michael is a lifetime member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, Inc. He holds an MBA from Northwestern University and a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Illinois. Michael is married and has 2 children. Welcome, Michael McNeil.
Thank you very much. Look forward to participating this evening.
Thank you, Michael. And next, I introduce Vanessa Smith. Vanessa Smith is the head of SAP's Human Experience Management line of business in North America. She is responsible for driving sales and the go-to-market strategy and overseeing corporate operations. Most recently, Vanessa was Regional Vice President for SAP's Strategic Customer Program, managing accounts across North America, driving technology-enabled strategic engagements that help organizations simplify their operations and innovate to win in the digital era. In 2018, Vanessa was named as a top 100 ethnic minority executive by Empower and the Financial Times. She holds an MBA degree from the University of Maryland and a BS from the University of Virginia. Vanessa is on the board of Teach for America, Greater Philadelphia region, and a member of Jack and Jill of America and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to an engaging discussion.
Thank you. And next we have Dina Spinola. Born and raised by entrepreneurs, fab'rik. She is the founder, Dina is the founder of fab'rik and was taught at a young age that if you love what you do, you will never work another day in your life. This mantra inspired her to leave corporate America and open her first boutique in 2002. Since then, she has carried her mission of high style with heart, nationwide with over 40 locations and growing. Author and inspirational speaker, and I have her book, Dana is committed to reminding people to dream big and then chase those dreams relentlessly. She wrote the book, Love What You Do, as a guide to ignite your passion, find your purpose, and live life with meaning. While Dana sits at the head of a leading fashion franchise, as well as a nonprofit organization, her most rewarding job is being a wife and mom to her 4 children and 20 chickens. Welcome, Dana.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to chatting with everyone tonight.
Next, we have Etosha Thurman. In her role at Capital One, she is leading the commercial banking treasury management sales. She brings her 17 years of experience in the software industry with roles at SAP and several years at software startups. Etosha's focus is on delivering transformational value drivers, impactful client experiences, and new business models to the banking industry. Her last role at SAP was head of SAP Ariba's Global Business Network, where she focused on facilitating global commerce. She has been in various customer-facing roles, driving internal and customer change management to adopt cloud software and digital transformation. In the community, Etosha has served as a board member at Wild Center and is a member of Jack and Jill of America and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. She holds an undergraduate degree from Florida A&M University and an MBA from the University of Cincinnati. Etosha is married and proud mother of 2. Welcome, Etosha.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Wonderful. And next, of course, not last, but the important part here is you have to always have a great moderator to go with such great panelists. And we have that tonight. And that is Kayrn Greer, who I always give a shout out because she is not only my homegirl, but my high school classmate. Yeah. So Kayrn is a longtime Atlanta resident, wife, and multi-Emmy award-winning news anchor and investigative journalist, well known in the local television market. You can find her midday on CBS 46 News. She is the past president of the Atlanta Press Club and currently serves on the board of governors for the National Academy of Television, Arts, and Sciences. Kayrn is a member of the Lynx Incorporated, Jack and Jill of America Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and on the board of Pebble Tossers, Inc., just to name a few. Throughout her career, Kayrn has been the recipient of numerous awards, honoring both her professional work and community contributions. Welcome, Kayrn Greer, as our moderator for this evening.
Hey, hello everybody. We are in for a real treat, Charmaine. Thanks so much. How different is this world today? What do you guys think? Who would have thought while you were celebrating this big anniversary, we'd be doing it virtually? So I thank you all for joining us on what is sure to be a chat to kind of raise awareness and make you think a little bit. You know, today when I got into the newsroom, we talked about what today is, and it's funny, the ladies all talked about it as well. You know, on this date, 1970, if you aren't quite sure what happened, well, a nationwide women's strike for equality happened, led by Betty Friedan, the 50th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. You know what? It calls attention to the unequal pay and other gender inequalities that we are facing here in America. And what better day to talk about all of that than today on this 26th of August. So we're excited, we're ready to go. And, you know, let's get right into the first question as we talk about leadership roles. You know, everybody, I would think, aspires to be a leader in their company and what they're doing. But as we know, for women, leadership roles are hard to come by. It's not an easy task for us. We have to work 10 times harder. So what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership? I want to ask this of everyone.
So I guess I'll go first. Hi everyone, it's Vanessa. I have to say first that I was the only one who left out the fact that I had kids in my bio. So I've been feeling really bad since then. So I do have 3 kids, but I just wanted to add that before I answer this great question around barriers to female leadership. When I think about the key barriers, I kind of net it out into 2 things. One is confidence and one is imagination. I think we've all heard the statistics from a confidence perspective that women, if they look at a job description and there's 10 qualifications, want to have 15 out of the 10 to even decide to even think about applying for a job. Whereas a man has 2 and they're like, I got this. And so there's a little bit of confidence here as women that if you're confident in yourself and your capabilities and your ability to perform, that you can do the job, and then you should go after leadership positions the same way a man would evaluate his own capabilities and skills. From an imagination perspective, there's a saying that if you haven't seen it, can you believe it? And a lot of times, right, we haven't seen women in these executive roles. So not only does that impact the people that we may have the opportunity to lead, they think it's odd for a woman or a Black woman especially to be considered for a big leadership position, but it also for ourselves. As I've gone after big opportunities in my career, and there's never been a woman, much less a Black woman in that position, how can I imagine that? So that goes and ties back to my statement on confidence. So confidence and imagining not only the people around you, but imagining yourself in those positions.
I love that. Great idea. Dana, what do you think about this?
I love, Vanessa, you are a perfect setup for that because I believe exactly those. I think you probably articulated it better than I could. But, you know, when I think about it, it's just being exposed to enough women who are leading. I mean, I just remember kind of trying to carve my own way, and there really wasn't. Everyone asked who my role model was, and, you know, there was women in books and, you know, people I'd heard of doing things, but there really weren't those people that I could really be learning from day to day and say, hey, how do you get your kids to the dentist and jump on a partner call? Like the real ins and outs of women leadership. And I think that was probably the biggest barrier. And I think what's so beautiful about that is now it's significant for me as I continue my leadership role to look at other younger women and say, hey, you know, research, find people that are doing it, hook up very close with them, and, you know, make sure we're sharing, this is how you lead, this is how you get bold in all of your day-to-day decisions to get in there, because you have to work a little bit harder and carve your own path.
I love it. Etosha.
You know, I'm going to add on, I think Dana sort of touched on it a little bit about, you know, how do you go to the from the dentist to a partner meeting or whatever. And I'm going to say the superwoman complex. Right? I think that there are opportunities that women have, and we take it and we put our toe into leadership. And then we have this superwoman complex that where we believe we have to do everything. We have to handle it all. We want it all. We have to handle it all. And what we inadvertently do is set ourselves up for failure, right? And not put in the support structures that will allow us to be successful across the board. I mean, I remember when I was just beginning my leadership career, and I had this whole moral dilemma about needing help at home, you know, and feeling guilty because I couldn't be like my mom, because I couldn't, you know, make it at home at 5:30 and have dinner done at 6. And then I had a friend that told me, you know, Etosha, if this is the path you want, you need to recognize that you will always have more money than time. So how do you use your money to help you have the time you need where you want it? And whether that's where I want it in furthering my career, or when I come home, that I can just be present and engaged at home. And I think there are women who are on a great trajectory who burn out because they haven't put that support structure around them. And they take on the superwoman role, and it's just not sustainable. And it prevents us, and we create our own ceiling because we aren't superwomen.
Awesome, very good points. I love this though. I'm waiting for the day where I'm gonna have more money than time, okay? But I love that. All right, you know, Michael, we need to hear from you because we're usually trying to move you guys out of the way to get in those spots. So what is our biggest challenge?
You know, I would totally agree on exposure. And I think we kind of netted around some of that discussion. You always talk about exposure because, one, whether or not you're networking, whether or not you're building on experiences, but you have to have that exposure and a seat at the table in order to be able to gain, you know, and go kind of bust your way through that particular barrier. And when you got more men that feel more comfortable with each other and they're at the table, and you don't have, you know, the women at the table in order to be bringing others along, you don't get that appropriate exposure that you need to have there. So that to me is how I would look at where I see some of the barriers when I'm, one of the first and only brothers that got in the room. Then on top of it, where's the, how are we going to get women in there too?
I love it. All right. Want to say, I see a greetings from Charmaine, our hometown chapter in Chicago. They are joining us this evening. So, hey to you guys. Glad you are here with us. And Michael, since we have you up, let's move on and talk about how you help us as women move into that next role. How do you really help us be our advocate, help us make a difference, kind of be our mentors through this? What do we expect from you?
Yeah, I think again, one of the most important factors is, being the male and in the room and having that exposure, you got to walk the talk. And for me, that's making jobs available, that's strategically, leveraging, positions for women in order to get all of the exposure that I just talked about. So effectively, for example, I started at, the current organization I'm at, which is McKesson, and it's a, Fortune 10, company. And I'm probably, from the level I am within the organization, the highest, African American, as an example. So as I look at the roles that are going to be my succession roles that I'm putting in place, I am deliberately looking at that next role and trying to earmark for one of my vice presidents to be a female. And I put the gauntlet out with my HR organization, as well as with my network, to make sure that I'm making that known. And so again, not shameless plugs, but if you're in security, I have the jobs posting, please get in contact, because that's the way you make the difference in my mind. And you kind of do that mentoring by walking the talk, making the positions available, promoting people when you do have opportunities within your network. When I get a phone call and someone is looking for opportunities, I either, can talk with them, get aligned with them, and or find other, people to network with, women in order for them to get opportunities as well. So I think opening those doors that aren't readily opened is a critical part of that success factor and trying to bridge that particular gap.
Okay. And I want to tell people, if you want to share, we are broadcasting live on Facebook, the Atlanta chapter page. So please help share. And those are some good points. And Vanessa, Michael, this next one is for you, because we always talk about being our authentic self, being the real us. Is that always possible? But first, I want to get you guys to talk a little bit, since we do have some guests and some visitors. And you said security for McKesson. Just what does McKesson do?
So McKesson right now, I'll give you our biggest example. They have the responsibilities for distribution. So we just got approval through the CDC for when the vaccine comes out for COVID-19. So McKesson is the organization that would be putting the distribution centers in place, getting all of the vaccines from the pharmaceutical companies, and then distributing that to the healthcare organizations, physicians, et cetera. We do that with all of the PPE and other types of solutions within the healthcare space.
I think you have my lead story for tomorrow. Thank you, Michael, for that. All right, and let's hear, to Vanessa, what does SAP do?
Sure. SAP is the world's largest business-to-business application software provider. So whether it's operations, supply chain, procurement, HR, finance, et cetera, we run the mission critical transactions within the four walls of the company and extending to their business partners, customers, and suppliers, all the data and transactions that go back and forth for organizations. We're global. We're a German company, but we have 30,000 plus employees here in North America. We're headquartered outside of Philly, and I know we're hiring as well. So I hope that this turns into some good leads for a really amazing organization.
Well, tell us about being authentic. Have you been able to get where you are in your career by being you, or have you had to, morph who you are and become something a little different to get to this point?
Well, that's such an interesting kind of layered question, but I'll make sure I'm quick in my response here. I think that I've found my voice over time. I think the foundation for coming to work as your authentic self, number one, is being not just good at your job, but amazing at your job. When you've earned the respect, the trust of your peers, your leaders, your team, they want to listen to you, regardless of what topic you want to talk about or what's authentic to you. So one thing, I know we have a lot of folks who are newer into their career or trying to get to that next level of their career on the phone. The foundation for all of this is hard work and being successful. Once you do that, the sky's the limit on what being authentic means and bringing your authentic self to work. So when I felt like I had reached that point at SAP, I found myself being much more authentic in simple ways, such as sharing stories about the fact that I went to the Black Lives Matter march in Philadelphia this weekend, saying that's what I did this weekend. Or I was watching CNN all weekend and what was going on after George Floyd was murdered, et cetera. And really talking about that when people say, how are you doing? To something as simple as how I wear my hair. I know we talk about this all the time as women, and now being on Zoom all the time. And it took me 15 years of being a professional Black woman to say, you know what? I like to work out. I like to swim. So you know what? I'm going to wear my hair the way it grows out of my head. And the major thing that I had to do was change my bio picture to even show myself in my natural hair. But again, I grew over time in defining my voice and being authentic. The last thing I'll say though is there are boundaries of being authentic. You still have to be professional. And I know professional is a slippery slope on what is defined as professional. If you want to be successful and your authentic self is sarcastic and you have a culture of empathy and nurturing, guess what? You don't want to bring that authentic self to work. So I think it has some boundaries, but again, that hard work foundation, culture of success, people want to hear what you have to say, what you're doing in an authentic way.
All right, Michael, you didn't get to answer that part of the question. As a Noop, pretty boy, how do you bring your authentic self to work?
I was going to say, ever since we were, at Illinois, that the Noop is going to be there. And so I am always, I wear a bow tie, which is something that is very distinct. So with my bios and other pictures and when I speak and, even if testified before Congress, you have to understand who you are and what you're bringing to the table. I totally agree, with everything that Vanessa said. I mean, that's sort of table stakes in terms of coming in and, and wowing everyone and then being able to excel. I do think you have to understand your audience and what you are delivering and to who you're delivering. I present to our executive team, which is the level I report into, and the board of directors, of a Fortune 10 company. So I'm not going to come in, like I just might have, like she said, coming from swimming or doing it. I'm going to be on a Zoom, call. I've met with the board, just earlier, Monday this week. You know what? I might have my shorts on underneath, but when you see me with the jacket on and when I'm presenting with them on the topics that need to be, because I need to be taken just as serious as the dynamics that I'm dealing with. And so there's a time and a place that you can let down. I said I was in cybersecurity. I always attend on an annual basis, the largest hacking convention that takes place in the summer in Vegas. Well, when you go into that environment, you cannot be suited up or dressed in a particular, because you stick out like a sore thumb. So again, it's real critical to understand your audience, which roles that you're looking at, and to what extent are you your authentic self. But yes, I do agree that you can definitely maintain that. And again, you got to come with your A game all the time.
All right. Now, and I think I just probably messed up my screen, or did I?
Nope, you
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, question for Dana. And Dana, talk a little bit about, we all know, or many of us know, is it pronounced fab'rik, fab'rik?
Tell us about what you all do.
Sure. So I'm the only person in the world that calls it fab'rik, and I'm the founder. So I'm losing, but the good news is I have a whole world of people that call it fab'rik because it's more fun to say. So it's women's clothing, and we have about 40 locations, and I started this mission to ensure that everyone could afford to feel beautiful. So the customer service is, as high end as you can get, but everything in the store is under 100. So that was my mission back in the day, and I just promised I'd keep that. And so we obviously have growing e-com, with how our world's going. And I have a nonprofit called Free fab'rik, and we do free shopping sprees in safe houses around just to ensure that every woman gets to feel beautiful. So I believe in the power of an outfit. I believe in clothing changing lives. And that's kind of where fab'rik was established.
I love that. Okay. And tell us, we've talked about, a couple of ways of getting here, but the successful career, the perfect family, because we laughed, we talk about our children, and, you'll talk about the dog, the house, the husband. Is it possible for us in this day and age, particularly now with COVID going on, for us to have it all?
Yeah. I mean, I love this question. I think that we absolutely can have it all. Like, there's nobody I would say, no, you can't have it all. Can we have it all at the exact same time? No way. I've tried. I've luckily, written a book to research understanding. There's a whole chapter on how I basically crashed and burned and had to take a sabbatical because I was on a mission to have it all at the exact same time. And it's just not sustainable, like we talked about earlier. However, that just means you have to figure out where you sacrifice. You have to figure out daily prioritization of where do I need to be? As a CEO, there are places I need to be in my company that other people cannot be. As a mom, there are places I need to be that no one can step in and be that person to my children. However, you also, if you want to have whatever you call balance, which I don't believe in, I think it's really a negotiation with yourself and your company and your children. You really have to figure out what you can delegate. And I do that, I do that every Sunday, but I do that day to day to day. And there's negotiations with my husband, what can I get? What could you do that I could do? And with my company. And you really have to be able to, I loved how Michael was talking about professionalism. I'm not the person that will jump on a call and say, hey guys, probably won't be able to pull this off because I have, all my kids are here, but there may be a moment that happens, and how you handle it. I ensure that wherever I am, I'm all in. So that might be here with you. And in 2 hours, it will be, cooking dinner with my family. And an hour after that, I'll be creating marketing plan. But wherever I am, you're all in. So I think you don't have to decide which one you're going to give up, but there's going to be seasons that you are pushing hard on one over the other. And you just have to be really honest with people. So you don't lose friends. And there's times that friends have so you are so off the grid that you're not even making my birthday party and you're trying to negotiate. But if you can get honest, really good people around you to support, then you really can put it all in there.
I love it. Etosha, talk a little bit about Capital One, and then I want your question to be, we've got some great ones coming in. Michonne says, can you speak to how you started your leadership trajectory? Is there ever a time when it's too late? Can you start it at any age, any time? So first, tell us a little bit about Capital One.
Sure. So I have been with Capital One now, I think 8 or 9 months, and I have to say, it is a wonderful place to be. Capital One has such amazing, smart, committed people. I think one of the things I love the best about Capital One is this belief of positive intent and entering every conversation with the underlying belief that everyone is here for the right reasons and building from there. I also like that I am not the smartest person in the room, and I have to say that has not been the case all the time. I've often felt like one of the smartest, and now I get to just be, a commentator. So it's lovely being in a room of so many very analytical people. But to address the question you asked about, is it ever
change for you?
Yes, I'm sorry, maybe I should share that. Yes, so for most of my career, I spent 17, 18 years in software, really focused on a procurement space. And I made the decision last fall I decided that I wanted to be uncomfortable.
Oh.
And I laughed because I forgot what uncomfortable felt like. And it sounded like a good idea until I did it. And so being uncomfortable, you know, I had been with SAP, and in the procurement spaces, it went from a very manual function to a digitally transformed function. And I see banking going through that, and in particular treasury management, where there's still some very manual things that happen, and they're on the cusp of really embracing the digital transformation. I said, I know how to do that. This will be fun. And then I was uncomfortable, and I remembered what that feels like. And now I'm coming out of the complete discomfort and really embracing the change in banking and in treasury management, and loving the journey.
Uncomfortable. For me, would that be broke?
Not yet, we'll see.
I'm gonna start all over again later for all of this.
I have to tell you, the first month, I didn't know what anyone was saying. I swear I would sit in meetings and all I would do was write down what people were saying. I had no clue what they were talking about. And I kept saying, I know I'm smart. I'm pretty sure that I understand the English language. But you know, I'm getting there.
You're there. I love it. Stephanie Day says in their book, Unleashed, Francis Free and Ann Morris suggest that in order to see how well a company is doing in regards to equity, you need to look at the experience of Black female employees who are also mothers. If they're doing okay, then everyone else probably is too. Does this ring true for any of you panelists? Vanessa?
Wow, that's such an insightful question. I mean, you could broaden that to society in general, how you treat women, the elderly, minorities is a really definition of how well we're doing as a culture. But if I think about it in the corporate world, I see that it could apply there as well. Again, leading with the stats here, you know, Black women on average, I think, earn 62 cents for every dollar that a white man makes. And so, you know, with that in perspective, I think it's super important to look at how women are thriving and how minorities are thriving within a company. I know at SAP, we were probably out first and a leader in the high-tech industry when it came to gender diversity. And we went as far as to set targets to say we're going to have 30% of women in management by 2020, I believe. And we beat that. And so we upped it. You know, we upped the percentage a couple percentage points. I'd say on the ethnic diversity front, it's much more of a battle. And I think all of us are really familiar with the stats in high tech and African Americans, Black folks in general, much less Black women in high tech. And then I like to look at it within the lens of Black executives in tech who are on the front lines, who are touching customers or touching the product. And there's even a bigger gap. So I think if you're looking to make a career change or even within your own organization, one way to assess the health of the business is to talk to people who look like you and say, how are you doing? Are you feeling supported? The last thing I'll say is this, and I'll just share that I'm about to embark on a career change as well. And Etosha, I'll be calling you because I'm ready to be uncomfortable as well. But there's been not a better time, I'd say, in recent history as a Black person in corporate America or a Black executive to take advantage of opportunities. Companies got that wake-up call 2.5 months ago with George Floyd. And they are really, at least most of the good companies, trying to do something about it. And I think now is the right time to open those discussions up within your organizations. And if you are thinking of a career change, know your value in the market, because right now your value is high. So I'd say I'm not telling anybody to abandon their companies at all. See if you can get promoted within, but now's the time to know your worth and go after it.
Interesting point, Dana. That's pretty much what you did and started your own. In this current political climate, what would you say? How is business for you going? Because I know a lot of people are shopping online.
Yes, I mean, business it's crazy. I feel like I did 17 years ago when I first started my business, and I have about 40 other CEOs I'm tracking with that are saying the same thing. You're going back and you are reinventing your company. because people are shopping differently. There's just the entire mindset of the world around us right now. You're focused on so many other things. So we're having to really target into learn our market again and who that is. I think one of the things that Vanessa was just saying that's so important is, as a leader of my company, it is the time that there is a wake up call that has happened, and it is the time to take advantage of that. Like, just to put an exclamation point onto that conversation, because there's no reason not to raise your hand, ask for a meeting, step in and out. And if as a woman or as a Black woman, that's ever been a space that has been something that you didn't think you wanted to, gets a mentor or somebody to make you have that conversation, because I have incredible people in my network that are waiting and trying to embark on that conversation, but not exactly sure how to do it. So I think it's this beautiful space and time, while there's so much pain and unrest, there's an uncertainty, there's also this hope and kind of not sure what steps are next. So if we can have those conversations now, this is the time to get that meeting, to set that up and have those conversations that maybe have been on the tip of your tongue that you haven't been wanting to have.
And know your worth. I mean, this is so important right now. Okay, this question's for all of you guys, because this political climate, just another incident in Kenosha, Wisconsin. When is it ever okay? And I think, Vanessa, you mentioned this. When can you go into the office and have these discussions and talk with your coworkers about what's going on in America right now? And is that the wrong conversation to have in the workplace? Is that going to keep you from moving on to the next level because they think, oh, she's militant. Oh, she's Black Lives Matter all day long. How do you be your authentic self and still move up the corporate ladder with what's going on right now? Keith, I'm gonna start with you. I mean, gosh, I don't know why I said Keith. I'm looking at Keith's question. Michael.
So I'm in total agreement about, most organizations, the wake-up call slapped them in the face, and this is those that are gonna do the right thing are doing the right thing. I will tell you, I was extremely proud, within my organization, because by that Monday morning, we had a town hall meeting by the CEO. He had our diversity and inclusion, leader that was on the call, the African American employee resource group, the national chair from our organizations participated. They had the sponsor, which was the CFO, and then we talked about it. And in this particular case, we had our leader, clearly communicating, I've grown up and I know between my grandparents and others, they're racist. And we need to open this dialogue because this is just totally unacceptable. And so from that, if the tone is being set at the top and you talk about being your authentic self, it makes it very much now's the time, to really, seize the day here, because after that, you had almost every function having their own, meetings and their leaderships, and we all cascaded it. Since then, we've had at least 4 or 5 different sessions. We've brought in additional individuals to help, really assess what do we need to do to make a dramatic change. And when we talk about during this COVID time, we also put that into play around how are you going to make sure you reach out to your, employees, because everyone is so dispersed and they're not into, the offices to be able to dialogue. So I'm in total agreement that, now is the time to have that conversation. Now is the time, when people ask me, man, you are changing positions in the middle of COVID. Well, I know my value. I know where the opportunities were. And that's when I had to go seize and grasp it.
Oh, I see somebody saying, Team McKesson, so proud to work for his company. Thanks for sharing a great story, Michael. All right, Vanessa, what do you say?
I'm going to give maybe the non-politically correct answer to this question,
Good.
to be honest, and I think I saw it somewhere in the chat. It's a thin line, guys. Talking politics in general at work, Black Lives Matter, et cetera. It is a thin line. I am a leader of a sales organization of a lot of men, white men who worked at IBM, Microsoft, now they're at SAP, you know the trajectory. And there's an uncomfort level there. However, we owe it to not only ourselves and our colleagues, but our community to leverage our voice right now. And the way that I've found to do that, to touch people in a way that I've found most effective, is going back to this concept of authenticity. So the weekend after George Floyd was murdered, I had multiple conference calls that weekend. We were prepping for a customer event on Monday, and I had CNN on my TV, which is right here, turned down, volume down, on with 10 to 12 people on each of these calls, and nobody said anything. I'm distressed. You know, I didn't sleep the night before, and I have multiple calls, and nobody even mentions what's going on in the world. So that night, I started by sending an email to my Black employees. Unfortunately, there's only 5 of them, but my Black employees, to ask them if they were doing okay, and that it's okay if you can't show up 100% tomorrow. I get it. And then I said, that's not enough. I sent an email to 5 people. What the heck's that gonna do, right? And so I decided to share my personal story with my entire team. And my personal story about injustice and racism was about my kids. And my Black son, who's 14 years old, 6'4", and how he went on a ride for his bike in the neighborhood. And I was on a conference call on a Zoom just like this. I got the text, can I go? And I said yes, went back to the Zoom, and then I had this thought of, what if he runs into the wrong person at the wrong time? Many of my colleagues had met my kids at one of our winner's circle meetings or one of our events where you're allowed to bring your kids, and I know they cared about my family. So instead of me sending an email about George Floyd, which clearly nobody wanted to talk to, at least that weekend, I sent a note about my son and how I feel as a mother of a Black son. And I can't tell you the outpouring of people who reached out to me with empathy and wanting to know how they can help. That email to my team of 150 then got sent to all of North America, and then someone convinced me to post it on LinkedIn. And that was just an amazing chance for people to say, I don't know what to say, I'm scared to say the wrong thing, but I'm not okay being silent anymore, and what can I do? So my answer to that question is simply, yes, you need to speak up, you need to walk the line carefully, but make it personal, make it about you, and they'll expand it to the broader issue at hand.
And Dana, your stance on this will be different. Is it an uncomfortable conversation that you might have with your Black employees? Is it a conversation when you hear it, it makes perfect sense? What is it that you get from it once someone comes in and wants to talk about what's going on in America right now?
Luckily for me, I kind of thrive in uncomfortable. I have this idea of let's make things better, like since I've been 2. So I don't even debate that it's not good. I wouldn't even have that conversation with anyone that it's not good, because look, there's so much pain. So one of the things that, that we did a lot internally, but I think one of the most powerful things that I didn't know would be this powerful that I did was, my customers are why we're in business. And I sent an open social media note that was a call to action. I said, listen, I'm jumping on a Zoom call. I want any and all of my Black customers to join me there, and we're going to have a conversation. You can ask me whatever you want. You can tell me, but I'm looking to see where fab'rik is falling short, because I clearly we're falling short somewhere, and you will be able to see it. It's not your responsibility to fix my company, but if you want to come and have this conversation, I am all ears, open heart. I don't know how I'm going to react. I might get frustrated. I might get sad. I might laugh. I don't know what's going to happen. And we got on this call, and now it was every other week call with these customers who have almost become a counsel for us. I said, just challenge me, tell me what I need to do, and we'll see what we can do. And the first day, the things that happened from that call, our social media, why would I want to come work at fab'rik when your entire social media is all white women that look the exact same? But we have Black women that work here, and they shared so honestly, but we don't know that. It was 101 things that as a leader, I should have known, right? My daughter is African-American. These are things that so I think they also noticed me noticing real time, I can't believe I don't know that. I consider myself a very smart woman, and not that I don't know it, it just wasn't on my radar. So luckily we got through that piece, but now we're digging into, they reviewed my diversity inclusion plan, and just real honest advice is what I appreciate. When you talk about vulnerable, I love your store, but I can't shop there anymore until this happens. And you're my favorite store. My whole closet is fab'rik, but I can't shop there until this happens. And it was so beautiful to be able to hear it from there versus a podcast of someone I don't know of creating a plan. So that has been so powerful to hear straight up. I'm not against you. I want fab'rik to succeed, but in order for it to do this, would you be open to? And I think one of the other things was creating pathways. That was one of my customers said, I need you to creating pathways. From that call, I mean, this is what's so beautiful about just asking the people that you're serving. We created dream camps. And so we're creating pathways for young women who would never see, kind of what we went back to in the beginning, never see a pathway for themselves of what's it like to be behind the scenes in a fashion industry. So every week I sit with middle school and high school girls for an hour and basically tell them the details of how to run a fashion company, and just so it can crystallize a vision in their mind of, is that a job I want to do? So learning so much from just asking questions. And yes, it is a little uncomfortable. The next week we got back on that call, we were laughing they were telling me like, you guys are being so nice to us in the grocery store. Like, why are you, it's like laughable, like, hey, and like, we don't know what to do, but we just want you to know we love you and we can't hug you and we don't know. And so, yes, we just have the realest conversations. They're like, please stop talking about my hair. Cause every time I got on, I'm like, oh my gosh, your hair looks different. What'd you do? And like, we want to be, can we just have real conversations? So I learned so many things by just getting super honest. And I think if there's anyone in your life, you can have this type of conversation, just have it. The first one's weird. The second one's uncomfortable. And the third one's awesome. So
Etosha, talk a little bit about what you think about it. Because Michael, you kind of answered it. What do you think? I'm
going to just take a step a little past where Dana just went and share. I think for me, it's really about building a relationship. I agree there's a fine line. And so for me to be able to address where we are, things that are happening, I have to start with relationship. I think for most of my career, the things that hurt you hide into your home, until you're safe, until you're with your community. And I think what's changed for me as I've advanced, I can see better the cost around me of me doing that. But I haven't felt safe enough until I had the relationship and the credibility, sort of what Vanessa said, my actions say who I am, and I have the relationship to fall back on. And in this environment, I have challenged myself to be vulnerable, to share my story, to share what it was like growing up in Atlanta and seeing the Klan march in Stone Mountain, to share some of the experiences I had that are scars and that I have never, ever thought I would talk about in a work setting. But I agree with the personalization makes it more palatable. And I think in having that understanding, I do think it's still a very fine line. I think you can ostracize yourself if that's the only communication, only thing you bring to the relationship. But when you have a relationship that exists, and people care about you, if they're genuine, your pain is theirs, and it really opens up doors. And so I would challenge us to be open, to be vulnerable, to allow others who may not even be aware of what we go through. I'll give you an example. I shared with a coworker, we were walking through the airport and we were walking side by side. And as we were walking through the airport, there was a very well-dressed white woman walking right in the same path. We're going to collide. And her absolute expectation was I was going to move out the way, without a doubt. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to move. And now, normally I don't do this when I'm with coworkers, right? I have my manners on, but I was tired and it was a rough day. I lead a sales team like Vanessa, and the emotion you have to have when you're in front of the client, and I just didn't have any more left. I didn't have any more restraint left. And so the lady ran straight into my shoulder, and I just kept walking, and my coworker looked at me. I was like, what you don't see is a microaggression that just happened. There is no reason why we both couldn't step to the side. And I deal with this every day. And sometimes I just don't want to. And this was before George Floyd. And now, what was interesting is my coworker at that time, you know, he said, do you think you could be making a little bit too much of it?
Always.
And today, right, yeah. And today, though, what I find is the question is, really, how else have you experienced this? So I've been blown away by the openness and the interest and the empathy that it has encouraged me to be more vulnerable than I ever imagined being.
I'm getting in trouble because I have ventured so off of what we're supposed to do, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody said, you know, I'm done supporting businesses and companies that don't support me. And then somebody else really had an interesting point, and I want to remind the audience, if you have questions, click on the Q&A button. We have like 20 minutes left in this session. But interesting point, someone was concerned about getting to that next level. Knowing, we always say, know your worth. Well, how do you, when you're trying to get that raise, get that promotion, you know, when you're talking to that boss, how do you communicate your worth in a way that gets the results you're looking to achieve without seeming cocky, expecting too much? You know, we're in a pandemic. We don't have money to give you. We can't afford to give you a raise. We can't afford to move you up. How do you get what you're worth? Michael.
Well, I mean, you know, it's always, you know, kind of that fine, you know, balancing act, you know, that I would look at it. I think, you know, there's a component of patience that you need to make sure. We talked earlier about you got to come in and you have to wow them and you have to make sure that you make that difference. And you need to not only do it from an internal perspective, but your worth and your value externally. That's what's also very, very critical, because you have to have some kind of a comparative to make sure that you can be able to leverage what your value and your worth is. I will tell you, coming in from a stakeholder perspective, I just sent to the organization and the HR and other areas, here's some benchmarking studies on people that are doing my job in different organizations, and here's what their compensation packages are. So when you talk about, do I have something comparable to make sure that I understand what we're making and where that worth is, I'm going to help educate you. I'm going to educate you based upon what's happening out here in the industry. So
you know they know already.
You know what? They act like they don't. But in this case, they can't say, I don't know, when I'm sending it directly to them. So then when we're having the conversations, it's not a cockiness. It's like, I provided you with the data. I've given you the information. We need to talk about what those next plans and steps are so that it's crystal clear and we've put it right out there on the table. So I think that's a critical piece. Doing your homework and making sure that you can demonstrate that value and be able to communicate so that you can seize that opportunity. But you gotta, you know, it's a balancing act though that you're gonna have to take.
Vanessa, you're about to be uncomfortable again. So are you ready to do this in your new position?
Oh, I've been through the negotiation process, and I think I came out okay. But I would agree with Michael's comment around knowing what your worth is. Do the benchmarks. Sometimes they're externally available. The other thing that I would add to the discussion is this is a time to elevate your game and not talk about your effort. I worked on this project. I worked on that. No, listen to your company's earnings call. If you're a public company, every quarter your CEO and CFO and leaders get on and they talk to the analysts, and hopefully your stock price goes up after your quarterly earnings. Listen to what your CEO and CFO are telling Wall Street what they're going to deliver. Double-digit growth in the cloud, better operating profit and margin, more customers spending $1 million or more on your software, whatever those 3 or 4 things might be, and tie what you're doing on your day-to-day projects, efforts, etc., to those C-level goals and initiatives. All of a sudden, your boss, who might be a VP, an SVP, an EVP, is going to wake up and say, wow, this person who's on my team is put a great story together about how their work ties to what my boss is up at night asking me to do. So I think changing the equation and the value story around how you're delivering against the corporate goals that are going to move that stock price are key. The second thing is always talking about how you're helping your customers. I think most CEOs and C-level execs, whether you're in finance, HR, sales, marketing, procurement, whatever, if you're touching customers in some kind of way and having them see your company in a better light, that's an amazing story and someone they don't want to lose. So those are just a couple pointers I'd add on to Michael's baseline.
And Dana, you know, a lot of companies now want you to be hybrid. They want you to be able to do more than just your job, but combine another position with that. So Dana, what if one of your employees came to you and said, you know what, I want to be your chief diversity inclusion officer? Because do you have one of those?
We don't.
Okay.
We have somebody that's acting as, like you said, yes.
If somebody says, I want to do that, I need you to pay me this, what would it take for you to say, done?
It's show me the numbers. You know, I love data. It's that to me, there's a group of, you know, there's money here that's for salary, and there's what we are producing in terms of sales, and there's no tricks there. So if you can show me, just like Vanessa said, so here's our company initiatives. These are the baseline goals that we're trying to hit. Tell me how this role will get there. And that happens a lot at fab'rik. We're not big into titles and roles, and coming from corporate America, I loved that piece, but I left that there. And so you really can come and say, this is the role I want. We have an experience manager whose job is to ensure that every customer's wowed. And that took a while for me to approve that position, but it was because, oh, okay, we believe that a customer needs to be wowed is the single most important piece. If you say that, Dana, then I think we need to have a role around that. And so what we're doing with right now, when you talk about diversity and inclusion, I talked about the customers that they're basically paid in clothing allowance right now because we don't have the budget for it. But as we see our company move into a different direction, as you know, our company becomes more diverse and we take on more initiatives, that could easily be a role. But what I've told everyone in our company, and really everyone who knows me, create your role and basically propose something to me that I can't say no to. Show me the numbers, show me your file of wins, and do the work for yourself. Sit down with me and say, you might not have seen what I do, and you might not see what fab'rik doesn't have. You really can't not have this. And I say yes to a lot of those when you've done the work for me, because I can't be in all of those conversations to see the amazing value you brought.
Now somebody's asking, so has fab'rik created opportunities or a compensated a D&I council for the minority customers you're seeking feedback from?
Well, we do a clothing allowance currently. You know, right now, in the last couple months, we've had to close all of our stores. We're not in a position yet, but I'm hopeful as we grow that will be, you know, a part of who we are. It's an important piece of who we are anyways. We have an internal council that is not paid, but it's of our owners and our managers who it's just part of what they're doing anyways. So it's not as separately compensated, but it is part of their role.
Gotcha. Etosha.
You know, I'm going to sort of share, follow Dana a little bit. I keep following everyone. I get a chance to sort of something. Someone asked, is it ever too late to get into leadership? That was a question I didn't get a chance to answer. And so I'll sort of bring these two together. The first leadership role I had at SAP, I created. I saw an opportunity where we were being inefficient. And I had experience before that let me know, you know, I think I could build this and do it even better than it was at the company I was before. Wow. So I'm going to write a business case, you know, in good old B school work. I'm going to write a business case for why this role, this organization needs to exist, how I can deliver it, what I would need to be able to deliver it, and when you can start expecting results. And so I proposed it to my boss and my boss's boss. I told him what I was going to do. I asked them for the opportunity to do it. They gave me the opportunity and I did it. I built a global organization. It was very awesome.
Did you to do that in the beginning, or did you have to wait until you proved yourself?
That's a very good question. So I was in a customer facing role. I was already delivering in that role. So I had credibility and I was over delivering in that role. So I didn't walk in without having a name, sort of a brand already. I knew the brand I wanted to create, and I was working to create it in the role that I was in, you know, driving success and what they expected of me. And then I presented the plan as, and I can do more. And luckily, you know, they were open for more. And one thing I would say is every person you work with, every stakeholder, every peer, everyone has a motivation. It's to what Vanessa was saying. Understanding what that motivation is. Listening to those investor calls to understand the motivation of the C-suite, right? And what I was doing at that time was I was listening to the motivations of my managers. I was having one-up, skip-level meetings to ask, where do you see the organization, or what are your big pain points? And I wrapped all of that into this business case so that I could speak from a place that was broader than the horizon they thought I saw. And it's important even now to continue, and I have to remind myself, I need to keep my horizon broader than the scope I have today if I want to go further, right? I have to be able to see further to go further. But I really like and more than once, I've created my own role and set my own destiny, you know, by being leading in where we could go next. And that's really based on having credibility in what I'm delivering now. And this is one of the value, this is part of my brand, is being a thought leader and trying to look around the corner to help us get to where we want to go.
Never looking back.
Sometimes I look back. only to learn and grow.
All right, we got an anonymous attendee who says, I'm starting a position where I will manage a team of 4. My first time in a supervisory role. Can any of the panelists offer any advice or recommended readings? Who wants to do that?
I have one.
Okay.
So this is your first leadership role. I'm going to recommend a book called Ego-Free Leadership by Shane Hughes. And it's actually co-authored. It's Shane, and it's a CEO of a credit company in, I want to say, Texas. I can't think of the name of the company. But I read it a year ago, and it is great in terms of helping you see your own challenges that impact how you interact as a leader with others, and being able to address your own dreaded images and fears that play out in your interactions as a leader. So I would strongly recommend, as a new leader, that you look at yourself and take that, that. In another book is Mindset. That's another good one to think about as you're starting your leadership journey.
Let's get on Amazon tonight. Michael, you got anything?
I wasn't going to say from a first leader perspective, but I was looking here and there was a book that I think it also will help. Shelley Archambault has a book which is Unapologetically Ambitious, you know, taking risk, breaking barriers, and creating success on your own terms. So I think as a new leader and looking at this, I mean, Shelley's outstanding. She's been one of my mentors, and you know, she stepped out. She had a career with IBM. She was a CEO at MetricStream. She's been a part of National Black MBA, ITSMF, a number of the organizations. And the book that she is talking about, us being our authentic selves, all of the topics that we have, and a female that's on publicly traded boards like Nordstrom's and et cetera, you want to check her out. She has a podcast, and her book is great.
Okay, Dana, we obviously need to get your book. Talk a little bit about it. I think that's a good one too.
Yeah, so, I mean, what book I'm reading right now?
Or don't you have a book?
Well, I do have a book, yes. And it's crazy because I'm a CEO, wasn't at all, you know, an author. But what I found in my career was when I looked at my calendar, there was hundreds and hundreds of coffee meetings. Can I have coffee with you? And I'm having coffee and coffee and coffee. And I love coffee, but it was a lot of coffee. And I'm sure you all know the coffee feeling, but I wanted to ensure I was pouring into another generation. And basically what I did is I put it into a book that's really a path of ensuring that you are doing what you love, like that your passion is alive. It doesn't mean every day's bliss, but it's hard work, but you're doing it. But that there's major purpose there, that when you look at the end of the day, that you don't serve on a Saturday, that what you do as your work incorporates why you think you're on this earth and that you're putting good work into this world. And so when I watched those things, I made sure that, you know, my company and a lot of the conversations I had, as you're building something, even just building a team for the person that's starting their team, you're creating a culture. And what is that culture's mantra? You know, what is that team, even though you're with a huge organization, or if it's just you, that at the end of the day, those 5 people or those 5,000 people can come home and say, this is what I do. We don't sell clothing at fab'rik. We have high style with heart. Every single thing we do, we're serving. And so I think that's a very important piece, to just know what yours is. And everybody that comes to work with me, from interns to executives, I would want to know what makes their heart beat and what breaks their heart. And that's passion and purpose to me. So it changes, but I think that's really important. And then I will just throw out, besides my book, I would definitely recommend Work Life. It's a podcast by Adam Grant. It's so much of what we're talking about today is how do you live in a culture that's changing, and you want to ensure you're vulnerable, and you're just how to create teams that matter. So love that too.
All right, I'm just trying to sell your book. What's the name of your book, Dana?
I know, I'm the worst. Every time people are like, you don't even, I'm like, so it's called Love What You Do.
Thank you.
Love What You Do, Dina Spinola. You're the best, and I'm the worst.
Vanessa.
CEO, yeah.
Are you an author? You got a book out there, and what are you reading?
Yeah, I was looking back on my bookshelf because I had a brain fart with the name of the book. I'm in the middle of it. It's called Powerful. And it's by the former CHRO, Chief HR Officer of Netflix, Patty McCord. And she was the Chief HR people leader during their transition from when they sent physical discs. Remember when Netflix, you had to order it and you turn it back and they sent it to obviously now 100% streaming. And she talks about how she partnered with the CEO of Netflix to lead that company through digital transformation. We had her come speak at one of our recent leadership meetings, and she blew me away with a lot of her insights. So I'm not done with the book yet, but so far I've gotten some really great insights on leadership. The other thing that I'd recommend, obviously reading is great, but for that person who asked the question and said, hey, my first time leading a team, it's a team of 4, go write down the name of 3 leaders that you've worked for, that you've loved working for, and think about why you love that leader. And then call up that leader and ask them for tips. So that might be another pragmatic way, in addition to doing the academic part of the study, but the practical on-the-job training. Reach out to those leaders and examine what you loved about them.
Okay, I'm hoping I can get to a couple other questions, but this is a must answer for everyone, so I need to get to it before I get beat up. If you could go back in time, what is one piece of advice you would give your, 30-year-old self? 30-year-old self. All right, since you're up, Vanessa.
Okay, just do it. When I was 30, I felt like the folks at SAP in leadership positions saw something in me. You know how you can kind of tell you're getting a little bit of extra attention, but you're not there yet. And I would get invited to meetings and offsites, as hey, we've invited a few extra folks who really shouldn't be here because they're not leaders yet, but we want to get the early talent in. I had lots of opportunities like that. And I would sit there and I'd be scared out of my mind to open my mouth, because I thought I was, as Etosha said earlier, definitely wasn't the smartest person in the room. And I was intimidated by all these folks who had these years of experience. So just do it. I was there because they wanted to hear from me. And I feel like I blew so many opportunities to have a voice. And I'd always sit and I'd think about what other people said, and I'd be sitting there like, you should say it, you should say it. And I wouldn't say anything. So I'd go back to my younger self and say, just do it, have a point of view. If you've got a seat at the table, they want to hear from you, and make yourself uncomfortable. Again, that statement again that was said earlier in the call. Part of the reason that I'm, moving on to my next opportunity, I wanted to feel much more uncomfortable. And if you're not feeling that way and you can accommodate that in your personal life and professional life, put yourself in those uncomfortable positions. And one really last piece of advice is be the first person to speak up. It totally breaks the ice. I think I inadvertently did that in this session because a lot of times you're thinking like, okay, when am I going to get asked the question? I have a really good point to say, when's my opportunity? And so the first half of the meeting,
yeah,
yeah, for the first half of the meeting, you're thinking about when you're going to have a chance to say something really insightful. So my advice is always be the first person to talk, break the ice, and then your authentic self the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Etosha.
I would tell my 30-year-old self that perfection is not the goal. The goal is the journey. I think I've been an overachiever forever. And I'm not, unlike Vanessa, I'm always talking, right? So it was good for me not to be the first one to speak up. I'm learning to listen, you know, and I had so much pressure on myself because I felt like at that age in particular, it's now the time, you know, and I felt like I owed it to so many that opened doors for me to be where I was, that I couldn't fail. I had to be the best. I had to drive. I had to get there, you know, and I would tell myself perfection isn't the goal. As a friend of mine told me, you don't get a letter grade for life, Etosha. There's no A at the end of it. It's the journey. And I would give myself more grace because my passion, my dedication, who I am will get me there. But how I end up, how I am by the time I get there matters too. And that's really about me taking care of me along the way, you know, and being a little more graceful with myself.
All right, Dana.
Well, Vanessa and Etosha took my 1 and 2, so I'm going to go to my number 3. But Etosha, just the idea of enjoy the ride is so beautiful. I love that because you can just churn and then you look up and the joy wasn't there. And that's really, you know, make sure that's woven in. But so the third one on my list would be trust your gut. You know, there's so much knowledge. There's so many smart people out there. There's so many people in my life that encourage me or tear me down. And it's at a point in your career, you just have to say, what is that voice telling me? I know myself well. How do you balance inside and say, this is what I should be doing? Just trust your gut, form your wise counsel, your people around that you really, really trust, and go for it.
Michael.
Always pursue your passion. Your passion is going to get you, you know, for the long haul. And so my 30-something would still be pursue my passion. And again, I knew when I set the goals and examples, because my passion was to be able to be a general manager, lead an organization and teams, and to help bring along others. That's my passion. And so that's, again, what you want to exercise and keep in your forefront.
You weren't like that in college.
Yes, I was. When we were on the quad.
Well, I'm just gonna say, and I think I'm learning this so much later in life, being in broadcasting. I know Drake sings the line, Dr. Phil claims he invented it. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I'm learning, you know, I'm always in a hurry, always trying to, you know, go, 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 go. You know what, just take your time, sit back, you know, and I can say, coming back to CBS 46 for me, the second time around, because I was there 20 years ago, and I've been reporting, you know, I've been cleaning the hallways, you know, and I finally got back to anchoring. But when I walked in the door, that wasn't the position that was being offered to me. So like you guys, you learn, what is it that you want? What's your passion? Stick around till you're doing what you want to do, or move, leave, become uncomfortable, and go get what you want, right? So I think people are really enjoying what you all are saying. And I know I'm going to get in trouble because we are at 7:20. And Charmaine, are you right there? Because I know I'm supposed to be done, what, at 7:30? It says 1 minute left. Transition and close out. It's Tamara. Tamara, thank you. Hope you guys had a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to say hello. I'm Tamara McLaurin. I'm your Director of Programs. First, I just want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists. Thank you, Michael, Vanessa, Dana, Etosha, and our awesome moderator, Kayrn. You guys did an awesome job, especially in this virtual world. I mean, we're all zoomed out, but hey, thank you for taking your time this evening to be with us as our distinguished guests, as well as our attendees. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Capital One, Georgia Power, Chick-fil-A, SAP, and Prudential. And some of you guys didn't know this, but we did a quick little giveaway virtually. And the first 4 people who asked questions are going to be gifted with a gift card. And I've already reached out to them. It's Stephanie Day, Michonne Watkins, Wanda Wilkes, and Natalie Hughes. And unfortunately, some of you guys asked questions anonymously, so we weren't able to select you. But I will be reaching out to you guys this week. I'd also like to thank our chapter president, Sonia Stallings Ward, all of our Atlanta board members, as well as Charmaine Ward Milner for her participation this evening, our Women's Summit co-chair, Marie Harrison, as well as our different chapters across the country that attended today. So again, thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening. So take care.